Well, what is going on here? Today, this thing is going to be thrown on. I'm going to show you guys how to clock the turbo, if you guys have never clocked a turbo before. And yeah, so this right here is a new turbo that's going on. So it's a Garrett G35-1050. This one has the 1.01 exhaust housing. Yeah, I've been really wanting to upgrade to this turbo for quite a while now. The compressor maps between this and a GTX34RS, assuming that they have the same exhaust housing, they're kind of similar. This one's obviously more efficient, so like on the lower end, this one will definitely outperform the 84RS. Really, you can't go wrong with either turbo. It's really going to depend on what exhaust housing you choose to throw on. Like I said, this one has a 0.83 housing, so this one is a little bit weaker on the top end, and then this one has a 1.01, so this one's a little bit stronger, and it is going to be laggier as well, since you have a bigger exhaust housing. But yeah, took the turbo out not too long ago. I'm actually currently selling it, so that was the reason why I took it off. And yeah, the sizing is very similar. They are both 35 frames, so they are mid-frame turbos, so of course the sizing is going to be really similar. The main difference is going to be in that turbine design and the wheel design, I guess you can say. So yeah, so let's get this turbo on, and yeah, can't wait to see how this is going to look. And you know, it's going to look pretty much the same as it did with the 35RS, but this one's just a lot shinier. So yeah, let's bring this turbo down, and we'll get on forward with this. Oh boy, big turbo time. Just love anything between the 65 to 70 millimeter range. All right, there she is. Man, it looks so good. Freaking love this car. All right, let me mount you guys up and explain why you want to get this done. All right, so clocking your turbo, what, why, and how. So clocking your turbo is essentially changing the direction of where your housing faces, depending on it either it being the exhaust housing or it be the compressor side. So that's what clocking a turbo is, just kind of changing just the orientation of where that little inlet or outlet goes. Why do you want to do it? The reason why you want to clock your turbo correctly, obviously on the compressor side, is so that it actually fits your intercooler piping, whichever direction your intercooler piping is going to go to actually connect to your compressor side of the housing. So that's going to be the shiny part that looks really pretty on turbos. I always kind of say it that way. But yeah, so you want to make sure that your compressor inlet can actually line up to your intercooler piping and actually plug up in there and tighten. So that's why you want to clock the actual compressor side. Now, I think the most important part here is going to be the exhaust side. So why do you want to clock the turbo when it comes to the exhaust side? So this right here is going to be pretty much kind of like some basic theory. So you have gravity, you know, gravity pushes down on any type of object, mass, whatever. So gravity pushes down, and essentially oil, you know, it's a liquid, it's going to want to fall straight down. So the reason why you want to clock the exhaust housing, this is like the most important part. So when you clock the exhaust housing, you're going to have an oil inlet and an oil outlet or an oil drain. So that's going to be pretty much the basis of it. And then depending on your turbo, you might have coolant passages that run through. Like it might be water and oil cooled, or your turbo might just be oil cooled. If it's oil cooled, I mean, that's realistically the reason why you clock is just the oiling part. The coolant part doesn't really matter too much, it's going to be the oiling part. So why do you want to clock the exhaust housing? So the reason why is because you're going to have your inlet to your turbo, so you're gonna have the inlet oil coming in, and then you have the outlet coming out. So if you clock your turbo the wrong way and you kind of clock it sideways, where your inlet is in the side and then your drain is on the actual right from it, it's not going to drain properly, and you can actually damage your turbo that way. You can damage your bearings, so that's kind of one of those really important things. So you don't want your inlet to pretty much be horizontal, you want it to be vertical. So kind of, which is one of those things to keep in mind. As long as it's vertical, like you should be straight, like you should be good to go. But that is going to be, in essence, like why you want to do the exhaust housing like the most critical, is just because of oiling. So you want the inlet to be on the top, and you want it to drain completely down. So make sure you don't, flip that around and put your drain on the top and then the actual inlet in the bottom. That is not going to be good. The other thing as well that you kind of want to look into is make sure you have the correct restrictor on your turbo. Turbos are going to have completely different restrictors for different applications and whatever style they are, size, it's going to be different. Journal bearings are always going to have bigger restrictors. So the restrictor is going to be the little pinhole that actually goes from your actual feed into the turbo. You're going to have little restrictors. They look like they're going to usually be AN fittings. So it's like an AN fitting that kind of goes in and has like a little tiny hole poking out of it. And the reason why it has like a little tiny hole is because that little tiny hole is the restrictor. So you want to make sure that you don't have something with like a really huge hole if it's going to be a ball bearing turbo, because that can actually damage it. Kind of like the thing to keep in mind, journal bearing turbos want and need a lot of oil. Ball bearing turbos do not need a lot of oil. They are okay with a minimum amount. If you add too much oil, you can damage the bearings, you can damage the turbo. So yeah, just keep that in mind. And then I'm gonna show you guys pretty much what that looks like. And then how do you clock your turbo? That is what I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to show you guys how to clock it. You can either clock it outside of the car if you know your car really well, or you can clock it inside of your car if you don't really know how your setup's going to look like and how your positioning is going to be. So me, I've already clocked the exhaust housing outside of the car because I kind of just matched it to my old 3584RS. So I matched the exhaust housing. So the exhaust housing is going to be pretty accurate. If not, I can always loosen up the V-band and kind of just rotate it to where I need it to be. So yeah, so that is all done there. And then I'm gonna do the compressor side. The compressor side, I'm gonna do it in the car because that one, I just wanna see how my intercooler piping is going to fit with it. It's a little bit more difficult since I actually have the piping just completely loose. So yeah, I'm gonna clock the compressor side. So other than that, without further ado, I'm gonna show you guys how this is all gonna work and what the fittings look like, or at least those that are important to you guys. So yeah. So here we have the G35-1050. So this right here is a shiny pretty part that I said. This right here is the compressor side. The other side, which is gonna be this one right here in the back, is going to be your exhaust side. So the fittings you really need to worry about are gonna be the ones that have to do with oiling. So on Garrett's, you have one in the bottom. This is technically the bottom, so it's kind of hard to tell, when you first get your turbo if you don't really know what you're looking at. So you have this fitting right here that you're pretty much going to make sure that is pointing down because this is your drain. So you have the drain right here, and the opposite one, which is going to be on the other side, is going to be your actual inline or your feed. So this right here is my drain tube. Since I am rotated, I have this long tube coming on out so you can actually drain into the hose. Make sure it's long enough. So yeah, so this right here is going to be the drain. And then on the opposite side, let's move this real quick. That right there is your feed. And that little fitting right there has a super, super tiny like little hole right there. So that hole right there is going to be your restrictor. So yeah, you want to make sure you have the correct restrictor for your turbo, because if you have too big of a restrictor, you can damage the turbo. Like I said, this is a ball bearing, that's the restrictor is pretty tiny, and this is what it calls for. So that right there is going to be your fittings that you want to look for when it comes to how you clock your turbo, as far as the exhaust side goes, because that's very important. And then clock your compressor side. Pretty much you can just do it in the car, and you loosen up a couple bolts and then you can kind of move it around. Different turbos are gonna have different ways of clocking them. So some of them are gonna have V-bands. This one has a V-band right here for the exhaust side. So super easy, just loosen the V-band and it'll loosen it up. And then for the compressor side, this one has some bolts. So you have, that's why there's these right here. So you have 1, 2, and I think there's like 6. So pretty much loosen those bolts and then you can start moving around this like little housing right here. So it's different for every car. So I'm gonna go ahead and loosen up all of these a little bit before I actually put it inside the car. So yeah, let's loosen these up real quick. All right, so I'm gonna be focusing on the compressor side. I'm actually just going to flip this over since I'm gonna be loosening some bolts here. All right, there's that. All right, so pretty much I'm gonna loosen all of these. These are essentially kind of like brackets that, you know, kind of have the turbo kind of stay in place. So that one is loose. That one is loose as well. I think I'm gonna have to take the drain off. I think it's gonna get in the way, but we'll see. So that, and there's going to be this last one. I have a feeling the drain's gonna get in the way. Looks of it, yes, it is going to get in the way. So I'm gonna take the drain off real quick and then loosen this one, and yeah, we'll just clock it without the drain in there. It's honestly going to be a little bit easier with the drain in there. So yeah, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna, I don't know, I think I might just leave it out. It's really more important that I get to this to line up, and then this, it's a long hose I have in there, so it's not really that big of a deal since I can just slip it on. It's super long, it like slips all the way up to here, so it's no biggie. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead, so I'm gonna take off the drain, and then we're gonna put this on and just mock it up real quick on my car, and then we'll clock this thing to where I want it to be. Yeah, once I get it clocked in there, I'm gonna tighten a couple of these, and you know, just make sure it's in place, and then completely tighten them when I pretty much get this back in the car. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take that drain off real quick. All right, so I just loosened it up real quick with the impact. So now I'm gonna take off these screws. All right, cool. So out, just wanna make sure, is this gasket gonna come off? I think it's set in there, so I guess hopefully it doesn't fall. We should be okay. All right, so that being said, once I loosen this one, I should be able to start moving the compressor side of the housing. So let's see if that works. There you go. So you're seeing I'm moving the compressor. I know I moved, right now I just used the exhaust housing to move the compressor. I'm actually moving the compressor side of the housing. So this is already clocked kind of to like where I need it to be. So pretty much at this point, yeah, I'm actually moving the compressor. So now if this will kind of be like a better example just to kind of show you. So we move this over here. So this is a compressor, you move the compressor, it moves. All right, so compressor's ready to get clocked. So I'm actually going to tighten these bolts just a little bit, and then we're gonna mount this turbo onto my car and then completely clock it and have this thing all set to go. So yeah, let's get to it. All right. Oh, where are you? Oh yeah, and I actually got the intercooler piping to kind of fit a little bit on the manifold. So boy, that looks freaking crazy. It looks so good. God, just so freaking good. So I'm gonna mount the turbo on here, and then from there, I'm gonna figure out how this piping is going to fit and just clock the compressor side of the housing. Yeah, let's get this thing on. Just a little background story here. My downpipe is loose because I ended up breaking my bracket. It like kind of bolts into your trans. So this is loose. So I'm not ready to worry about this right now. I'm just gonna get the turbo mounted on that right there. All right. So here is the turbo. Oh, this thing's heavy. Yeah, so this right here is going to be how that turbo is going to sit. Just want to double check and make sure. Yep, V-band to V-band. So now all I gotta do is clock the turbo. So let's clock the turbo. Like I said, you just kind of just move the compressor around and then pretty much just call it a day. So I'm just gonna do that real quick. I'm gonna loosen these two that had tightened up to kind of not move the compressor around. And yeah, and obviously, let me show you guys real quick actually. Let's see. So, as I like mentioned before, this is your feed. You wanna make sure your feed is pointing straight up. So that right there is pointing straight up. And then the actual outlet is gonna be going down, which is your drain. So that's what you're gonna wanna have on the exhaust housing, so that was perfect. So yeah, just gonna loosen those two top ones, kind of move the compressor just a little bit this way to kind of line this up a little bit better with the actual charge piping here, and retighten it, and then we'll completely tighten it back on my toolbox. So yeah, the ones I had tightened were these two up here. And it wasn't even all that crazy that I even tightened either. It was just a little bit, just kind of get this compressor to not move. So I'm gonna hold this, kind of move this around here. I want to say, yep, this was in the way. All right, so essentially the way I'm gonna have this go, it's kind of clocked. Is this position okay? Let's see. So that right there is going to be the clocked position I'm going to want. So I'm gonna pretty much just leave it like that. I'm gonna get the wrench and just retighten this. So, all right. Cool. And when you tighten up your housing, if you have these like bolt styles where you have to like kind of loosen up some bolts and then retighten them, if you're gonna do it, I'll show you guys how to do it. Just make sure you guys kind of go in like a star pattern when you do it. So yeah, so now I'm gonna take out the turbo, put it back in the toolbox and tighten the rest of them. But yeah, that's pretty much how you clock the turbo. It's super easy, as you guys can see. So yeah, that is insane. I love Garrett's, man. It just looks so good. Just look at them. But yeah, let's tighten up the compressor side. So like I said, I kind of like doing them like, you know, kind of like a star. So what I'm gonna do is, so this one here I had already tightened. So I'm gonna go to this side, tighten this one up just a little bit. So what I do first is I'm gonna hand tighten them all first. Okay, so that. Hand tight. Let's do this right here. Hand tight. Make sure. All right, so from here, it's kind of when I'm gonna go to star pattern. Gonna go ahead and just tighten those real quick and should be good. Cool. And yep, should be good. All right, so my turbo is now clocked. So I don't have to worry about having to clock the turbo again. So this is one and done. So bam, so that is clocked and ready to be put in whenever I end up getting my other fittings that are gonna come through. What I'm actually gonna do real quick is just reinstall the drain. So that's gonna be this one right here. Go ahead and throw this thing on. It's kind of it can be kind of a pain to put it on there, but yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and just get this done. Just want to keep it on there, so I'm gonna do it by hand first. Tight, should be good. And that should be good as well. Cool. So this turbo's good to go. So that is pretty much how you clock your turbo. Super simple, guys. So I mean, any of you guys should be able to get this done. So yeah, I'm waiting on a couple of fittings to get here because my other Garrett has -8 or 8AN fittings for the coolant ports. So I'm actually going -6 now, since the ones that come with this turbo are -6 and the 8AN fittings don't actually fit this turbo. There's like not really enough space in here to get a fitting in there and tighten it. So yeah, it is what it is. My push lock -6 and fittings are gonna get here for my hoses, and then once all that stuff gets in here, I'm gonna be able to completely install the turbo. So yeah, for now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw on the turbo now and just tighten up the drain, pretty much tighten up the V-bands, tighten up the intercooler pipe, and that should be pretty much it for today. So yeah, let's get back on with installing the actual turbo. The first thing you want to do is just make sure your V-band clamps are pretty much set up for this. So okay, cool. All right, so I got that one on there, and then we're gonna get to the other one. Right. those already set in place. Just gonna make sure I get everything all lined up here, and should be pretty much smooth sailing. So yeah, let's throw this thing on real quick. All right. So first thing I gotta line up here is going to be that drain. So the drain is lined up. So now I'm gonna have to line up the rest of the turbo here. It's gonna be kind of a pain, but we'll be all right. We will be all right. And actually put the V-band clamp over it. I'm gonna get these two tightened up and just make sure this completely on there. And then I'm gonna worry about the downpipes. I'm gonna do that just real quick. All right, so I got the up pipe on and the intercooler pipe on there. Now I'm having trouble with the downpipe, of course, so I'm gonna have to go under the car, disconnect the exhaust from it, and that should free it up. So I'm gonna go ahead, lift up the car real quick, loosen it, and we're gonna finally figure this out. I have the downpipe all loose, so this should be way easier to line up. There you go. I feel like I might have to actually disconnect the whole thing. Yeah, I'm probably just gonna do that. I'm gonna disconnect the other half because this is a like a two-piece downpipe. And yeah, just line up the first half and just go from there. All right, so I got the other half off now. So this one right here is completely free. Got that all lined up right there. Dope. So we'll leave it like that. I'm gonna go ahead, start tightening this one. I think it's a 13, so I'm gonna tighten it and just make sure that they connect perfectly. And that's pretty much it. Super easy. Like I said, I just can't do my coolant lines yet because my coolant lines are -8, so they're too big. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and tighten this one down, and that's pretty much it. It's pretty easy overall. We got the turbo pretty much where we want it to be, so I'm gonna go ahead and start tightening this V-band right here. I got pretty much everything that I need to get done as far as the exhaust side goes. So now I'm just gonna tighten up this last clamp. That's gonna be for my intercooler piping. If you ever get the chance to go V-band on your turbo or exhaust housing, just V-band whatever it is, like definitely do it. It's the way to go. It just makes your life so much easier. Like you can rotate stuff while you're trying to tighten and whatnot, just get everything completely perfect. So yeah, definitely recommend V-band. All right, and that should be good. So yeah, that is pretty much how you would throw on your rotated turbo if you have the same setup as me, and that is pretty much how you clock it too. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Super simple. I'm gonna go ahead and clean up here, get the rest of the downpipe all mocked up, and get you guys on out of here. So that is pretty much how you clock your turbo. Depending on what car it is, like I said, it'll be different if you're gonna have bolts or V-bands, but hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. I appreciate the support so much once again, and this car is almost ready to go. There's really not much left to do here. Just need to, like I said, just get my fittings, and then I think we should be ready to go. I need to get a base map on my Haltech ECU still, so that's still gonna come through, and then get the car tuned after. So those are pretty much the final steps. It's going to be the ECU and get the tune. So yeah, we're super close. So it's gonna be so exciting. The fact that this came together is crazy. So yeah, just everything here is just insane. So yeah, I appreciate you guys so much for watching. Have a great day, have a great night wherever you are, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.